Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Good Saturday morning, DFW. Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. I'm Jeff Crilley. We have a great show today. It's just packed with great information, everything from the rules of the road when it comes to running and managing a small business to gourmet coffee. You only thought you knew what gourmet coffee tasted like, to Halloween, to your finances. And that's where we're going to begin on the Jeff Crilley Show. Have you ever gone through your attic and you've seen all this stuff? And then you say, why in the world did I ever buy any of this stuff? I don't need any of this stuff. Well, my first guest is Holly Signorelli. She is the money therapist. And in her best-selling book, Do You Know Where Your Money Is?, she talks about emotional spending and what causes us to buy things that we don't need sometimes. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Okay, so in your book, you break down the cause of spending. What did you find?
I've found over the 26 years that I've been working with thousands of business owners and individuals that going through 3 market crashes, that people started to make very emotional decisions when it came to money. So the logic behind taxes or investments, it just no longer existed except for maybe about 5% of the population. And everyone else was so afraid because of the ups and downs that they were going crazy, making crazy decisions about money because of their fears.
Okay, give me an example of an emotional spend. Sometimes we see people say, well, I'm going for retail therapy.
Right.
I'm going to feel better because I'm going to go shopping.
Well, I call that desire in the book because a lot of people just simply buy things because they want them, and instead of taking the time to set money aside for them, because I believe that we can all have a full life, but a full life is better if you put money aside because you want this incredible pair of shoes or whatever it is that you want, instead of putting it on the credit card. And the credit card problem has gotten really, really bad. But another component of that is instant gratification, where you literally nickel and dime yourself to death for things that have absolutely no intrinsic value to you. Like buying magazines right before you check out. I was doing that for a while, like 3 or 4 a week, and I wasn't even reading them. It was just like, oh, I'm waiting here in line and I'm bored, you know?
Well, and in Dallas-Fort Worth, it's especially tough, I think, because this does seem to be a town where, what do you drive? How big is your house? So what emotion is that? Is that desire or envy, or what is that?
That is definitely jealousy. So
Okay.
Envy, the same thing. That's the whole keeping up with the Joneses, which is... It's probably the worst emotion that causes people to really overextend on a big level. Because it's one thing to nickel and dime yourself. That can hurt you a lot. That can add up to thousands of dollars. But I've seen a lot of wealthy people overextend specifically on their house. The housing market was so down that people were like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and buy a multi-million-dollar house, or they just overextend and they forget that it's not just the house payment. The bigger the house, the more nice things you have to have, and the maintenance, the repairs. They don't factor that in. So even if they're wealthy or they thought they had enough money, they end up selling and downsizing even to a nice size house. But just, again, it's that idea that I've got to have a car or a boat or an RV or a house that my friends have. Yeah.
We always hear about these high-profile athletes that maybe they came from no money at all, and suddenly they get this multi-million-dollar contract. They buy all this stuff that they don't need.
Yes.
And 2 years later, they get injured, and now they're upside down in their house and.
Right. There's a statistic on this, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but a lot of athletes are broke when they're done being an athlete because of that. They buy everything in sight. And also, I was talking to somebody the other day about lottery winners. A huge percentage of lottery winners run out of money between 3 and 5 years, and that includes Powerball winners. So people that win $350 million not only run out of money in 3 to 5 years, but they have debt because they got loans against the money that they had, which if you think about it, it's mind-boggling. Like,
Right.
okay, why is $350 million not enough? Because the higher your income level gets, the more your desires or your envy or any of these emotions, it just gets bigger and bigger because you don't ever really get there. The higher you get, the more you want. So I always say that if you're not taking care of your money now, you're not going to take care of it when you have more. That's not the solution to have more because you'll create the same patterns.
My guest right now, Holly Signorelli. She is the money therapist. Her best-selling book is Do You Know Where Your Money Is? I have to imagine that even people who are on the Forbes billionaire list may have jealousy. You know, I look at somebody like a Mark Cuban and a Jerry Jones, and they're both worth around $4 billion. But do they look at a guy like Bill Gates and say, wow, to have $63 billion, now that's when I've made it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it never ends. It never ends. The wealthiest people that I've worked with, it's like, next you want to have a private plane, or, who knows? It just, the list goes on.
Well, let's talk about some therapy here. So you're suggesting that before you make a purchase, especially a large purchase, you really ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Yes, because it's very painful when you buy something, especially something like a house that can be difficult to get out of, and you can lose money on a house if you get out of it too quickly, or anything like that. I mean, the biggest stereotype would be a boat or something like that. Right. And then you realize, oh my God, I got to pay this slip fee, I have maintenance, and you don't enjoy it.
Right.
So when you buy something that you can afford, and it doesn't matter what it is, but let's say it is a boat and you can afford it and you can pay cash, you're going to enjoy it. It's not going to matter whether it's the biggest, best boat. What matters is that you're buying it for your own enjoyment and not to please someone else, because nobody cares. When they go to bed at night, they're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about your house or your boat. They're thinking about themselves. Right. So what is the point of having those things and overextending yourself, because you're not really impressing anyone.
Absolutely. I know you're also passionate about business and helping small business owners. I see a lot of cases of people who have saved and scrimped for their whole life. They retire and then they're bored, and so then suddenly they're taking this nest egg and they're putting it all on the line on some small business. What's your advice to those people?
Definitely across the board, you should never use all of your money. If you are taking 10%, maybe even 20%, that's kind of high. That's different. But I always tell people to try to get a really good loan for their business, because what happens is, you don't think about this, but emotionally, when you are draining your savings account, you feel that. And that emotion affects how you wake up in the morning, how you handle your business. And as you watch it dwindle, you begin to panic. Then you go to the bank and they see that you're 6 months into your business and it's failing and you can't get a loan. They don't want to give you a loan. Right. But if you had gone to the bank first with a really good plan, you could have gotten an SBA loan, a small business loan, to finance, and then you got plenty of time to pay the loan slowly while you build your business. And the best way to make money is to throw yourself into your business and be passionate and not worry about, can I make this loan payment, or is my savings being completely depleted?
Absolutely. I'm looking in your eyes right now, and you're passionate. I mean, this is your soapbox, isn't it?
Yeah, I get excited about this because I've worked with thousands of business owners, and I've worked with them successfully, and it pains me when people come into my office and they haven't set up the right structure for their business. A lot of times people don't even think about setting up a limited liability company or understanding banks and payroll and things that you have to do, and it costs them thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. So they end up going out of business because they got so excited about their idea that they forgot to set the foundation. And you cannot build a house on sand, and you can't build a business on sand either. You have to do the boring part first. You have to set up the structure.
One of the things that most impresses me about you, Holly, is that you're not one of these money gurus who stands up there and says, I know it all and I'm perfect. You've had money mistakes yourself.
Of course, yes. I did one of the reason I wrote my book was because I put all my eggs in one basket. I was pretty young at the time. I'd started making money at a young age, and I guess I could say I was feeling like, invincible. Yeah. And so I went into a real estate deal, and even though I do this for a living, we did not do contracts. We did not even take the time to really establish that we understood the terms of the partnership. So, the whole thing went belly up. We all lost a lot of money and ended up with debt. And for me, it was, I didn't even know at one point how I was going to get out of it, but I realized that I couldn't be a victim, that I couldn't blame other people, and most importantly, I had to understand that when you make a mistake, you have to forgive yourself and move on, because those kind of emotions will keep you down there where you don't want to be. And interestingly, when I went back to focusing on my clients and being passionate and excited about my business, opportunities just started coming to me, things that I hadn't even planned on, and I was able to get out of debt in a much quicker time than anyone would have thought was possible. So I decided after that I was going to commit my practice to that. So even if I work with wealthy people, they still have that same propensity to put all their eggs in one basket, because when you've been very, very successful, you do get that feeling that you can put everything into one thing. And of course, it's going to succeed. And that's why a lot of multimillionaires go bankrupt.
Wow, we could do a whole show on this. I'm sure a lot of people are interested and they want more of you. So tell us about your website, workshops, anything that's coming up.
Sure, it's themoneytherapist.com, and recently I did create a SmallBiz Survival Bootcamp. It was specifically because one of my really big clients, one of their referrals came to me too late and went out of business, and I just couldn't believe it because they had access to all this information. And I realized that people don't always come to me on time, or an attorney or another CPA, because they don't think they can afford it. So I created a boot camp for brand new businesses. And maybe you've left your job and you're starting a new business, or maybe you're still at your job but you want to start a new business. So you can go to my website and do the course for $297, and you will understand everything you need to know to survive the first year.
Wow. Holly, this was a great segment. TheMoneyTherapist.com. Thank you again for joining us on the Jeff Crilley Show.
You bet.
Coming up next, if you had gone back in time 20 years ago and told us that we'd be paying $4 and $5 for a cup of coffee, we'd all call you crazy. Now millions of us can't live without our Starbucks, and just ahead, a gourmet coffee connoisseur who's going to tell us that we don't know beans about coffee until we've tasted his. That's next on The Jeff Crilley Show.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste.